And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today, we are doing an update around Terry McLaurin and his looming contract situation. Next, we're going to be talking about the details of Von Miller's deal and how he can immediately impact the Washington Commanders this season. And so, before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to hit that subscribe button, just like Jaden Daniels is going to be hitting Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Zach Ertz, and many others for multiple touchdowns this upcoming season. And so, in exchange for hitting that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Washington Commanders. Make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Washington Commanders Insider family as we talk nothing but Washington Commanders football. And so, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And let's start with the latest around Terry McLaurin. And so, our updates come from Jeremy Fowler. He's on ESPN. He is an NFL insider. And really, he has two different updates that pretty much say the same thing here. But let's start with the first one that I saw that came out on ESPN about a day ago. This was on the NFL Live show. And so if you want to check this out, you can head over to YouTube. It's about the 4:35 mark. He's talking about Terry McLaurin. And so 30 seconds there as he's talking about various topics here. But with Terry McLaurin, the key out of that 30 seconds is that he says that the Commanders have no plans on trading Terry McLaurin and that they want him long term. He also says that the Commanders are going to have to ask themselves, are they willing to meet the market, which has gotten pretty wild here with the wide receivers. And so, paraphrasing this, and then also too, he says that the Commanders and Terry McLaurin are not close on a deal and that they need to shake things out. And so, just to go ahead and drive home that point a little bit more, if you want to go check this out on Bleacher Report, this just came out today. And so this was on ESPN today on the morning show here with Jeremy Fowler. But this is what he had to say here, talking about this a little bit more. And so he says that Terry McLaurin, he's frustrated. You heard him this week talking about how there's no deal. He would like progress being made. There hasn't been. I'm told that that's only scratching the surface of the issue here because the wide receiver market has jumped into that 30 million range. My sense is that McLaurin feels Washington hasn't really been willing to acknowledge that. So if they are not, it's almost like he's taking a pay decrease because he's a year from free agency. So something's going to have to give here. Cooler head should prevail. They want McLaurin there. They're not trading McLaurin. That was made clear to me from a source of the team. All right. So there is two different points where Jeremy Fowler is going ahead and reiterating that the Washington Commanders are not looking to trade Terry McLaurin. And so let's start there because you do see a lot of the rumor mill out there around Terry McLaurin with the articles and things like that. And so that really throws some cold water on the fact that the Washington Commanders are not looking to trade Terry McLaurin. And I think that, look, Terry McLaurin wants to be with the Washington Commanders, and I think that the Commanders want him. But it is all about coming to just the ground on what the number is going to look like here. Because when you look at right now what's going on with the wide receivers in that market, there are 9 receivers currently that are making 30 million or more because you have Jamar Chase. He's leading the market. You have Justin Jefferson. You have CeeDee Lamb, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, who just got his deal. That's expected to be right in the $32 million range. You have A.J. Brown. You have St. Brown from Detroit. He's making 30 million. And then you have Tyreek Hill and then Brandon Ayuk. And so, you're talking about wide receiver one there. And then when you look at just the rest of the market and players that are above Terry McLaurin, you have T. Higgins, you have Jalen Waddle, you have DJ Moore, you have Devontae Smith, you have Nico Collins, Michael Pittman Jr., Calvin Ridley, and then Terry McLaurin. And I think that honestly, Terry McLaurin is better than all of those players. And I think that he should be the 10th player that should get 30 million. And so I get what the debate is right now, especially with the fact that he's 29 years old. He's going to be 30, I believe, once week 2 of the season takes off. And I get all that. But Terry McLaurin has been a staple of this franchise. And really, he's been a guy that, he's been solid for this team, even in the tough times. I've talked about his production, even with the 11 different quarterbacks, the amount of consecutive 1,000-yard receiving seasons, the fact that he hasn't missed games and things like that. And we also talked about some of the next gen stats, which just shows you how important Terry McLaurin is to really stretching the field and his big play ability at this point in time. And so I just think that now going into training camp, this is something that we're hoping that the Washington Commanders get done, because I think that when you look at his success in year one with Jaden Daniels and being able to be second in the National Football League as far as wide receivers are concerned with touchdowns scored, I think that you can really see more success here in year number two. We've talked about it across the board with the Washington Commanders getting better on offense because they've got things in place which are going to help Jaden Daniels have a clean pocket. When he has a clean pocket, he is tough to deal with. And so that is something that is going to really help Terry McLaurin and all the wide receivers here, along with even the running backs that are going to be out there running routes and things like that. And then you just look at the additions that are going to be out there, with Deebo Samuel, with Jalen Lane. You have guys that are probably going to come into their own in year two, even if it's just like a younger guy like Luke McCaffrey, or, players that were veterans that were with Jaden Daniels last season. I think that you can expect for a guy like Zach Ertz to take off a little bit more in year two. Noah Brown, I think that everybody is set to elevate, but I think that it just elevates even more when you get Terry McLaurin into the building. And I've said this pretty much on a lot of shows, that the bottom line here is that the Washington Commanders are not going to sneak up on anybody. And I think that you have to go ahead and you have to minimize these distractions. And that means taking care of these contracts. And so Terry McLaurin, he has the numbers that supports that he should be in the 30 million range. Do they get closer and get something done? That's going to be the question mark as training camp is set to start here on the 22nd. Is he going to be a holdout? Is he going to be a hold in? We'll see how that works out. But I do hope that the Washington Commanders do get something done with Terry McLaurin, because I think that to capitalize off of everything that you did a season ago, it means that you get this guy into the locker room to continue that growth with Jaden Daniels, and also to go ahead and get on the same page with your new additions, and to be that much more prepared, because you know that Cliff Kingsbury is going to come out there with more wrinkles in year number two of this offense with Jaden Daniels and everybody else. And this is why as well, we want to monitor these situations, because a guy like Luke McCaffrey, we've been hearing some great things about him. He's going to have to step up, because if Terry McLaurin is not there in camp, everybody's going to slide up. And so that means a guy like Luke McCaffrey, the added pressure is going to be there to get onto the same page with Jaden Daniels, because quite frankly, you might have to be dependent on pretty much if Terry McLaurin does not get there, depending on when this deal gets done, or if it doesn't get done, what happens there. And then you have to think too that a guy like Jalen Lane is going to also, he's going to have a little bit more pressure there as well to try to get on the same page with Jaden Daniels, because he's going to slide up there in the depth chart. And look, these guys might be dependent on heavily here. And so we'll see how this works out. Hopefully something does get done. I think that Terry McLaurin wants the Commanders want him. Just like Jeremy Fowler said, it's all about the cooler heads prevailing and something getting done. And so you guys let me know there. Next, I wanted to go quickly over here and talk about Von Miller and his new deal. And so if you've not got a chance to see this, you can go over to Bleacher Report and you can take a look at this. And so you see that deal is trending towards 10.5 with the incentives. And so right now it looks like that's 6.1 million. And then you max out the deal at 10.5 million with the incentives here. And so, with Von Miller, I think that this is a solid signing. And I think regardless of what happens here, Von Miller is going to make an impact on the Washington Commanders as soon as he sets foot into the building. Because the first thing that I think about with Von Miller is that because of his experience and because of the things that he can do as a sack artist, I think that he is definitely going to help our young offensive line, especially when you start to look at guys like Brandon Coleman and then also to Josh Conley Jr. The fact that they are going to be going against, I believe, a Hall of Famer. I think we could say that at some point he is going to be a Hall of Famer, but you're going against the best of the best as far as getting to the quarterback. And so I think immediately he is going to help the offensive line, which that's something that has been talked about with the Washington Commanders, and really why I think a lot of people feel comfortable with the Commanders going into this season. When you go out and you get a guy like Laramie Tunsil and you go out and you invest into the offensive line in the NFL draft, you're sending the message that you're trying to stop the pressure and the sacks that could come at Jaden Daniels. And so the fact that you have Von Miller, who you're going to be practicing against, I think he immediately helps you there. And then next, look, here's another thing that I saw that just suggests that I think that Von Miller is certainly going to help the Washington Commanders if they can get him into place as far as being able to stop the run and get him out there to maximize his pass rush. Because I got a chance to see this. This is actually something that came out about a day or so ago, but you can go over to sportsillustrated.com and read about this. But within this article, it takes you to a link to X here, and you can go ahead and see the actual tweet from Next Gen Stats here. And this Next Gen stat just tells you how productive Von Miller was a season ago, even with limited snaps for the Buffalo Bills. And so you can see it for yourself that it says that while playing limited snaps in Buffalo, he still generated 17.9 as far as the pressure rate, which was fifth highest amongst edge defenders with at least 150 pass rushes there. And so that's incredible. And, considering that Von Miller's 36 years old, so he definitely still has it. Then also, too, talks about how quickly he gets off the ball at the snap. And so you can see he led over Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa. You're seeing some of the elite pass rushers that he's over top of. And so the fact that he just had that a year ago with the limited snaps with the Buffalo Bills, I just think that, look, if the Commanders can find a way to stop one of the things that they just really had trouble with, which was the run, and you can get teams to really be in these passing situations, that pressure rate stat alone gets you excited about this defense. Because, look, if Von Miller doesn't get the sack, somebody else is. Somebody else is going to get the sack, or it's going to be a difficult day for that quarterback because they're moving off the spot. They're on the run. They're pressured, throwing off the timing and everything else, which is going to lead to a secondary that I think is going to definitely have a chance to turn the football over some more. And so the fact that the front of the defense has gotten better with Von Miller, it's all about now finding a way to stop the run. We'll see what that looks like, obviously, as week one approaches. And so anyway, you guys let me know in the comments here what you guys are thinking about Von Miller and the latest with his details of his deal, and if you think that he is immediately going to impact the Washington Commanders here. And then next, let me know what you guys are thinking about the latest here in Terry McLaurin in his contract situation. Once again, we got the update here from Jeremy Fowler, essentially throwing cold water on that, rumors out there that suggest that maybe there could be a trade out there, saying that the Washington Commanders are not interested in trading Terry McLaurin. And so I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And as we always say, go Commanders, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.